Peace and blessings, family. This is Brother Sharif with the Hour of Power. Go to Hour of Power, Sharif Hamid on YouTube. Subscribe and share so we can continue to lift the mind, body, and soul of our people. If you're tuning in on Facebook Live, please hit the share button and hit watch party so we can invite more brothers and sisters in to hear this message. So do that for me. We'll see if a couple more people tune in, and we'll get this message started. This year makes 29 years that the movie Boyz n the Hood was released. So we wanted to talk about the significance of that, and is what was shown in that movie, which I believe was a lot, is it still relevant today? The contents, the message, whatever you got out of it, is it still relevant today? Meaning the Boyz n the Hood movie, which was released and produced by our good brother John Singleton. May he rest in peace. Before we get into the message, just wanted to remind the people that the Harambe reading program will be starting that this Thursday. It's going to be like an orientation, so the actual reading group won't start, but we will start the Harambe reading group this Thursday at 6 p.m. at Reverend Boxley's church. We will start, well, we won't start, but it'll be an orientation to let the people know what the group is about, and see if we can get some volunteers, because we really need volunteers, especially male volunteers. That's really what we're in need of, is male volunteers for the Harambe reading group. And again, that reading group is for third graders on up, to teach them reading, writing, and comprehension skills. And that I'm talking about the Harambe reading group. So that's third graders on up. We teach them reading, writing, comprehension skills, and it's African based. So they're going to learn their history and enjoy it at the same time. So again, this Thursday, the 23rd, at 6 p.m. at Jabaz Ministries Church, which is 40 Jefferson Avenue, we will have the Harambe Reading Academy, but it's an orientation to let the people know who don't know about the reading group, and see who wants to volunteer. And again, I can't stress it enough, we really need black male volunteers to help out with these children. We already know the struggles that some of our children have with reading and writing in school. So this is what this group is based around: reading and writing and comprehension, and it's African based. So this Thursday, 6 p.m. at Jabaz Ministries Church. If you have some children that you think could benefit from it, or if you yourself would like to be a volunteer, please volunteer and come through. You can contact me or Mr. Kirkland, Mr. Jeff Kirkland, and we'll guide you on how to get involved. So now, this year makes 29 years that the movie Boyz n the Hood was released back in 1991. Of course, like I said earlier, it was produced by our good brother John Singleton. May he rest in peace. That brother did a masterful job with the movie, and unfortunately he passed away last year. But all the work that he did to wake us up, not only with Boyz n the Hood, but with other movies, it will never be forgotten and always be appreciated, at least from me. So rest in peace to Jonathan Singleton for his mastery of work. But tonight we want to talk about Boyz n the Hood, and you're welcome at any time to post, what you got out of the movie. What do you remember from the movie? And if you think, do you think that it's still relevant? What was shared in that movie, do you think it's still relevant today? To me, it exposed and shined light on a lot of things that's still going on today, even though that movie is 29 years old. I can't believe it. I can remember clear as day when it came out, maybe because they replay it so much on Netflix and different TV channels. Maybe that's what makes it seem like it's not as old as what it is. But 29 years. Ice Cube, Cuba Gooding Jr., Nia Long, Regina King, of course my good brother Lawrence Fishburne, my favorite in the movie, Morris Chestnut, Angela Bassett. Those were the main characters in the movie. Talked about inner city life with our youth, single family homes, mothers trying to raise boys and keep the family together. The crack epidemic, especially there in South Central Los Angeles. And again, please hit the share button and watch party if you already haven't. Gang life, gang culture, access to guns, gentrification, the influx of crack cocaine in our neighborhoods, not by accident, but on purpose, to destroy a people and to destroy them for generations to come. That's what I got out of the movie. And remember what our brother said, Furious Styles, known as Lawrence Fishburne. How come it's a gunshot on almost every corner? When you go to Beverly Hills, you don't see that. You know what? Why? They want us to kill ourselves. Why? They want us to kill ourselves. So before we get into this discussion about this movie, the people who watch The Hour of Power, A Voice of Truth, I hope we can all make a promise, a vow to ourselves. Now that we are a month and a half in of 2020, I want our vow, our promise to each other to be divorced. Did you hear what your brother said? I want our vow and our promise to each other, this circle of people, especially in this area, who I believe God is bringing us together for a greater purpose. I pray and I hope that our vow is divorce. What do you mean by that, Brother Sharif? I thought you meant that, I thought you stood for families being together and a black man respecting a black and brown woman and on and on and on. Yeah, I do. That ain't the divorce I'm talking about. I'm talking about divorcing from the beliefs, concepts, and practices and ways of Satan himself right here in America. That's a divorce I'm talking about. Because what he has given to us, what he has offered us, is not working for us. I believe it was a song by, what's that sister's name? I think her name was Vivian Green. And she said, an emotional roller coaster. And she said, loving you isn't good for me anymore. She said, loving you isn't good for me anymore. You got me on an emotional roller coaster. Y'all remember our sister Vivian Green? Give me a black fist sign if you with your brother. I don't got no notes. I'm just speaking to you from the heart. I knew I was going to speak on Boys in the Hood. But whatever comes to my heart and my mind from the Most High God, who is only one, I'm just giving it to you. And I hope you understand what I'm saying. We're going to talk about Boys in the Hood, but I got to get this message to you. We need a divorce. Divorce their ways, their beliefs, and tell them loving you has not been good to me. You got me on an emotional roller coaster, just like Vivian Green said. Well, what do you mean by that, Brother Sharif? I'm doing all right. I got a house and I eat and all that. That's good. You should thank the Most High for that. But what America has offered us, introduced us to, loving you isn't good for us anymore. The drugs, has that been good for us? Unwrecked about every household in America, especially black and brown America. Them too. They ain't doing too good with this, but of course when America gets a cold, we get the flu. The education ain't working for us. We need to divorce that too. Even the spirituality. You know, I saw something on the internet the other day, and it showed, I wish I could find this Negro. It showed this pastor teaching his female clergy how to give oral sex, and was using a cucumber. Some people sent it to me, and they said, Brother Sharif, we're going to try to find out who this is. Had a picture of it. So you even got to watch the spirituality, telling us that this blonde-haired, blue-eyed imposter is Jesus. We need to divorce that. And all the other filth and decadence that he has offered us, this country. We need a damn divorce. We need Judge Judy, Judge Joe Brown, Judge Mathis, whoever. We want a divorce today because loving you hasn't been good for me. Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen on the divorce? Unless you think what has been offered and introduced to us is good, then maybe we ain't on the same wavelength. But I want a divorce. But more, I've already divorced them. But I need my people to be on board with me. Yes, Satan is giving us nothing. Nothing. Yes, our other sister said she wants a divorce. But we need to get our other people, as many people, on board with the divorce. We can't do this alone. We need as many people at the courthouse immediately. We want a divorce. But the main divorce that we need to divorce from is the drugs and the alcohol and the poison that this damn devil has almost destroyed every one of our families with. Even if you are not addicted to drugs, I'll bet you if I lined up 100 of you right now, you could say, my mother, my sister, my cousin, or a close family member has either died from drugs, been in prison from drugs, something. Almost all of us can probably attest to that a family member, a friend, has either died from drugs, addicted to drugs, or been in prison behind drugs. We need a divorce. But we gotta believe it. We gotta see things for what it is. Even in Mark, I forget the exact chapter, it said about, it was a man and he said, oh my Lord, I see men as trees, indestructible. And it says, the scripture says, Jesus put a little spittle on his eyes. And he said, how do you see men now? He said, just the way they are. Thank you. That's scripture. Did you hear what your brother said? It was a man that says, I see men as trees, tall trees, indestructible. And Jesus put a little spittle on his eyes. And he said, how do you see men now? And he said, I see them just for who and what they are. So the spittle was him waking them up and taking the scales off of their eyes. You can look that up. It's in Mark. Whatever you get out of it. But he said, I see them for just and who what they are. We need to see this whole thing for what it is. You're not dealing with righteous people. You're not dealing with a righteous country. Any country that'll dope up a whole family, a whole country, a whole generation. They knew what this would do to us before they even introduced it. Scientists tested the crack cocaine on rats. And they know it's a certain gene within us that would make us more addictive to it than anyone else. How can white men take cocaine and still be functional, still provide for their family? But we take it, it totally breaks us down. It's some science to that. Did you know that they used to give slaves crack cocaine on a slave plantation? Did you know that? I said crack cocaine because cocaine in its original form is actually beneficial, especially to those in Peru where it's grown on the cocoa leaf. They would bite the cocoa leaf and use it as energy to climb steep mountains and to travel through the mountains to get other natural resources. That was cocaine in its original form. It comes from the cocoa leaf. But when they added crack cocaine, lab tested, lab made, then that's when the alkaloids was taken out of it, and then it made it addictive. But cocaine in its original form used to be beneficial, especially to our family in Peru. And they used to give crack cocaine to slaves to make them happy, jubilant, and euphoric about taking drugs and going to work for them all day. Did you hear what I said? Crack cocaine was given to slaves so they could be happy and jubilant about working out in the field all day. In case you didn't know, it's been here. But when it was made addictive, that's when it became what we have today. Our friend, I consider him a friend, Gary Webb, wrote one of the most powerful books that I have ever read. The Dark Alliance, the CIA, the Contras, and the crack cocaine explosion. This book was written by a freelance reporter by the name of Gary Webb. He used to be a freelance reporter, first in Kentucky and Ohio. Then in the 80s, he worked for San Jose Mercury News in California. And his masterpiece, which he got many awards for, was this book right here, The Dark Alliance, the CIA, the Contras, and the crack cocaine explosion. He revealed how the U.S. government and the CIA was involved in polluting black neighborhoods, especially South Central Los Angeles, with crack cocaine. The same time that Ronald Reagan and his wife was making commercials about cocaine. Just say no to drugs. It makes you feel good, good, good. It'll make you feel good, good, good. They was bringing the good, good into the black community to destroy us for generations to come. And then I had the pleasure of meeting Freeway Rick Ross, our good brother Echo, better known as Ray Harris, from right here in York, is his manager. I believe that would be his correct title. I got the pleasure of meeting and talking with him a couple times, and he talks about how America sent agents from Nicaragua, Oscar Blandon and Norwin Menes from Nicaragua, who were drug kingpins from that area. First, they tried to come to places like Miami to spread crack cocaine. And that didn't go too well because of the cultural difference. And then somehow they ended up in South Central Los Angeles and came across Freeway Rick Ross, the real Freeway Rick Ross, who was having challenges in his personal life. I believe he tried to go to college But that didn't work out, and he ended up back in South Central Los Angeles talking about Freeway Rick Ross. And I think he started selling heroin, and then he came across these CIA agents, Oscar Blandon and Norwin Menez, two crack cocaine drug dealers from Nicaragua. Because remember, the U.S. was already going back and forth what they call the Contras, trading guns for crack cocaine. It's called the Contras. I could be here a whole hour just talking about that. But that's what the U.S. was doing with Nicaragua to uproot their leadership. America was trading guns for crack cocaine. It is said once they came across Rick Ross, who was a slick and a fast talker, very intelligent and street smart, they said, this could be our man. And he is supposedly the first major crack cocaine drug dealer in America. And he admits it in this book. You know, I've talked to him. It's no secret. He's been going all around the country talking about it. He was even at Mosque Mariam, where Minister Farrakhan teaches, I believe like 1 or 2 years ago, speaking on this. This ain't no secret. But it seems like he's trying to reverse what he did. He was the first major crack cocaine drug dealer in America. It is said he was pushing 7 kilos a day. Rick Ross was moving more than 200 kilos of cocaine every single month. That meant he was pumping out around 165,000 vials of crack a day, 5 million rocks a month. This is how much they were supplying this man with out there in South Central Los Angeles, going late 70s, going into the 80s. Let me repeat that. I want you to think on that. How many families were destroyed and hooked on this powerful drug we know now as crack cocaine? 7 keys, as the people say in the streets, a day. Rick Ross was moving 200 kilos of crack cocaine every month. That meant he was pumping out 165,000 vials of crack a day, which equals out to 5 million rocks a month. That's what they supplied him with. They said he would get a house in a cheap neighborhood. It would be purchased by a front man. Then they would gut the house. The windows would be barred and steel doors installed. Large restaurant-sized gas ranges, big aluminum pots would be brought in at night and set up. Then the cookers, not of food, but the cookers of the crack, went to work. They would work in shifts, arriving and departing as if they lived in the house. The only visitors would be couriers, one to drop off powder and the other to pick up the crack. Working around the clock, the age-old axiom of good business to ominous extremes. Ross transformed the curbside operation of 87th and Figueroa into the Walmart of cocaine. LA Times wrote in 1994. So I didn't just make that up. This comes from the LA Times of the amount of crack cocaine that he was pushing to the people. I got to repeat that. Are y'all with me? A house, like if you go in Baltimore and Philly and you see all those row houses just empty, they would purchase it, probably for pennies on the dollar. A front man would purchase it and gut it. Windows would be barred, steel doors installed. Large restaurant-sized gas ranges with big aluminum pots would be brought in at night and set up. Then the cookers went to work. They would work in shifts, arriving and departing as if they lived in the house. The only visitors would be couriers, one to drop off the powder, and then the other to pick up the crack. But pick it up to take it where? working around the clock, making good business. Ross transformed the curbside operation of 187th and Figueroa into the Walmart of cocaine, written by the LA Times. So he was the first major crack cocaine drug dealer, and in this operation spread all throughout the East and the South. All throughout the East and the South, mimicking what Rick Ross did with the help of the government, of course, there in South Central Los Angeles. And we know the story from there. Did you know that our good friend, who is a white man, the man who wrote one of the most powerful books that I have ever read, the most informative books I ever read, Dark Alliance by Gary Webb, the CIA, the Contras, and the crack cocaine explosion, he's a white man. Do you know he mysteriously, supposedly committed suicide in 2004? He said he committed suicide. Now I remind you, these are government files. Government files where he got his information from. FBI files. He was going to black churches, black community centers, black schools, all there in the West, in South Central Los Angeles, spreading this message how your government and your president was involved with spreading crack cocaine. We just had a guest on the Hour of Power. Go back and check it out. Just last Wednesday, our good brother Casper Hill, and he talked about how when he was in New York, how his family just crumbled right in front of his face because of the crack cocaine explosion. How his mother became addicted to it, and then he starts selling and peddling it. His story is almost identical to Rick Ross, maybe not on that level, but he talked about it. And I asked him, I said, if you would go to Cleveland, Chicago, Philadelphia, wherever, do you think your story would be the same? He said, most certainly. It's a blueprint. Wherever we go, wherever inner city that you go to, you see a mere cloned image of Rick Ross, or what our brother Casper Hill, who was on the Hour of Power, talked about. My brother got his life together, praise God, and now he's being a light to the community instead of bringing darkness. But someone introduced him to the darkness. So the question to me is, either we are destined to fail, or it is a blueprint for us to fail. Please hit the share button and hit watch party. I know some people may be still watching the 49ers and the Packers. Seemed like the Packers forgot that the game started at 6:40. But whatever, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, whoever, they ain't gonna help us with this. They got their millions, and they got their football life. This is destroying black and brown families, and some white ones too, left and right. And it's systematic. So please share this message with as many people as you can. I see some people fell off. It's okay, as long as you still with me. Either we're destined to fail. When you look at the amount of black families, like I said, we could line them up, and all of us could say, yeah, I got a family member, I got a friend that is either addicted to drugs, died from drugs, or in prison from drugs. My blood sister, at 36 years old, died from drugs. My blood brother died from drugs at 55, just 2 years ago. Countless uncles and some aunts are struggling with drug addiction as I speak right now. My blood nephew, who I at times helped raise, was killed at 17 years old behind drugs. So this hits home and hits hard to me. I ain't talking from my experience of going to school, being a counselor and all that stuff. I ain't talking from what someone told me or what I think. This is personal. My sister had the potential to be an actor. She went and stayed with Cicely Tyson, the actor Cicely Tyson, for a week. Isabella Sanford, the lady who played Wheezy on the Jeffersons. She was won Miss Fine Brown Awards right here in York, PA. Talking about my sister, Veronica. May she rest in peace. I miss her so much. Ain't a day that goes by I don't think about her. She could have been an actor. She represented Rhode Island in the Miss Black America pageant with Bob Barker. But she had a problem. She couldn't leave it alone. And it ultimately led to her leaving this earth early. Same thing with my blood brother. Same thing with my nephew, who was the son of my sister. Gone behind drugs. I'm sure many of us have how many youth have we seen go down behind drugs? Either they pulled the trigger or they was on the other end of the gun. Most of the violence that we have seen in 2019, I hope 2020 is a better year for our youth in our community than 2019 was. But most of the violence that we saw, at least right here, was behind drugs. Drugs was at the center of the violence. Just at the end of 2019, they say some young white teenagers came into York and their car got sprayed up as they went down College Avenue, I believe. But the word is it was a drug deal gone bad. But we don't get the same benefit of the doubt, so to speak, as they do. They talk how wonderful this girl is and all the potential that she had. I don't know. I don't know her. But I know as soon as one of us get in trouble or a similar incident, they start running down your track record, your criminal record. Don't matter how long ago it was. Don't matter how irrelevant it may be to that particular case. They run it down. But for this young white female, she had so much potential. And we need to raise money for her funeral costs. Why is it there's a gun shop on every corner? Why they want us to kill ourselves? When you go to Beverly Hills, you don't see that. Words from Furious Styles, from Boyz in the Hood. These are some of the things that were revealed in the Boyz in the Hood movie. I think someone made some comments. I like to always go back. Someone said something about that earlier, so I'm going back through. Lawrence Fishburne, I wish I would have listened. Mr. Styles and his message didn't tell me to 2 years later by our brother Ray Brown. Yes, I'm just getting ready to speak on him. Satan has given us nothing. Yes. Salam, sister. Why is it there's a gun shop on every corner? Why they want us to kill ourselves? Every black family has been bitten by this snake. This is deliberate. It's deliberate. He talked about gentrification, meaning Furious Styles, on top of the gun shops, the ships. We don't own no ships to be bringing that amount of drugs over here. You see, you heard what I just read to you about the amount of kilos that Rick Ross was pushing in South Central Los Angeles every day. hundreds and thousands of kilos a week and a month. How do we have the capability to bring that here? That's what Furious Styles was revealing. I hope in our later years now that we ain't all caught up on the violence in the movie. But what's the cause of it and the root of it is this damn crack cocaine and the gentrification he talked about. Did you know that it's a term that lets you know that gentrification, which is investors coming into a neighborhood to buy up property and land and then raise the value of the property and land to force out lower income people. That's basically in a nutshell what gentrification is. Buying up property, raising the property value so the people who may be there 2-3 generations can't afford it and you force them out. But it's a way that you know it's coming. But since they don't teach us this in school, how would we know? And like the book says, how would I have known unless I had a teacher to teach me? How would I have known unless I had a teacher to teach me? It's called blighting. Blighting. Blighting is, and you tell me if your brother ain't telling the truth. If you start seeing billboards advertising something in an inner city, you best better believe that in the weeks or years to come, outside investors are coming for that neighborhood. Did you hear me? It's called blighting. If you see billboards in an inner city area promoting whatever, that is investors putting in bids on that area and trying to get other investors to invest so they can buy up that area. Case in point, do you remember all those years on the corner, for those who are in York, PA, on the corner of George Street and I believe it's North or Northern Avenue where the old bus station used to be? There used to be billboards there forever. Budweiser, Maple Donuts, Anheuser-Busch. For years. That means all those billboards, all those investors was investing on what you see now is the revolutionary baseball stadium that who enjoys? Not us for the most part. It's people from other areas coming in, supporting that. No, I better not go there. You know what I mean? Give me a black fist sign if you can bear witness to what I'm saying about for all those years. You saw billboards on the corner of George Street and Northern Avenue. Then if you go on the other end of Northern Avenue, they have the school there. But for years, we saw billboards there. Thank you, brother. My good brother, John Ayers. Now, all those people that lived on Girard and Northern, a lot of them are gone. They was forced out for a damn baseball stadium as if they're adding some value to the black community. They don't even have us in that stadium. Unless it's something that's going to directly benefit them. It's nothing going on there to benefit us. They're not educating us. They're not feeding the homeless. They're not doing anything to enrich us. It's for them and for their outsiders coming in that want to watch a little baseball. The Rev Stadium, that was in the plans for years. And it's called blighting. Now let's reverse it. We all drove around a little bit, or maybe I don't know where you live. But do you see any damn billboards in Wyndham Hills? Do you see any billboards in upper middle class or upper class neighborhoods right in their neighborhood? Do you see it? Most likely not. And they ain't coming in there taking their houses, setting up strip malls. Yeah, it's called blighting. So those are some of the things that Furious Styles clicked us on to. And the drugs coming in. We don't got no ships. How is it getting here? And then young black boys and girls too, who may already be up against it, like Rick Ross. And then they suck them in to that lifestyle. Just like our brother Casper Hill said. He said, man, I that's what I had to do to take care of my family, take care of my younger brother. We're not proud of that. But these are some of the options that our people are given. Unfortunately, that's why we need programs like the Harambe Reading Program, so we can get our youth early. Teach them how to read and write, so they don't become a statistic, so they don't be more susceptible to go that route. So we can teach family life and values and how a woman should conduct herself, how a man should conduct himself. I've talked about it before. We talked about it on the show the other night, about the significance of the show Good Times, how James Evans and Florida Evans, even though it was a sitcom, but it was real, they didn't have a lot, but they had family. If you got family, the real Trinity, father, wife, or mother, and the children, and put the Most High first, you got a gold mine. But they have destroyed that. That's why we need a divorce. I'm going to keep ringing that. Or maybe someone hashtag it for me, because I'm not too skilled at doing that. I hear people talking about hashtagging slogans. Hashtag we is a people. They can come out with their constitution and declaration and all that. We need one. And I say we need the hashtag we want a divorce. Matter of fact, we ain't even asking for one. We just got to convince our people we want and we need a divorce from the wicked ways that this country has offered us. We want a divorce immediately, because loving you hasn't been good for me. Quoted by our queen, Vivian Green. You got me on an emotional roller coaster, and loving you hasn't been good for me. We want a divorce now. Did you know Bill Clinton had something to do with the influx of drugs into Arkansas Mena Airport? Did you hear what I said? Bill Clinton, what would he be, the 43rd or 44th president? The same one that some of us blindly was saying he's the black president? It's a lot of them going around with that pale skin and tricking the people and believing that they're for us. And they really not. But I'm not going to go there. But Bill Clinton, who is labeled as the black president, Arkansas has the second smallest airport in the United States. So drugs coming in to that airport would almost go unnoticed. Listen to these government files that I have that talks about it. In the early 80s, the same time that this crack cocaine explosion was going on, one of the biggest crack cocaine and marijuana importers in the South, which Arkansas is in, was a man by the name of Barry Seal. He would fly loads directly into the Medellin cartel, dropping them off with pinpoint precision across Louisiana, Arkansas, and other southern states. This is a man by the name of Barry Seal, one of the biggest cocaine and marijuana importers in the southern part of the United States. This was back in the 80s. Seal detailed his cocaine smuggling activities 81, 82, and 83, and he testified to that. He made 50 trips during 3 years. IRS spokesman Henry Holmes told the Baton Rouge State Times in 86, explaining how he had a $29 million lien because of an IRS filed against Seal for back taxes. It said Seal smuggled at least 3 to 5 billion worth of drugs into the U.S. 3 to 5, not million, but billion would it be. This Barry Seals, who was known as the biggest crack cocaine drug dealer in America in the southern states. So that means they had it divided by regions. Because Rick Ross was out there in South Central. It is said during his time of dealing drugs, Seal also worked for the DA as a top-level informant. But I guess he got a little too big, because in February of 1986, Seal was murdered by he was murdered in New Orleans by a Colombian hitman. Seal's personal records show him to contract CIA operative both before and during his years of drug running in Mena, which is the airport in Arkansas, in the 80s. Historian Robert Morris and former NSC staffer wrote in 1996 book, Partners in Power, about the involvement of Hillary and Bill Clinton. Did you hear me? Roger Morris, a former NCS staff, wrote in the book in 1996 called Partners in Power about the involvement of Bill and Hillary Clinton. Because Bill Clinton used to be the governor of Arkansas when this Barry Seals was bringing in the drugs to Arkansas's airport. It is said Clinton's critics have charged that it was impossible for the governor of Arkansas, meaning Bill Clinton, to have been unaware of Seals' activities at Mena Airport. Indeed, Reed and the former Arkansas State Trooper L.D. Brown and Larry Patterson, both who have been critical of Clinton, insist he knew quite a bit about what was going on, including the fact that cocaine was involved. Did you hear your brother? This Barry Seals, the biggest crack cocaine drug dealer in the South, bringing in kilos of drugs, 3 to 5 billion. 3 to 5 billion, it is said. 3 to 5 billion worth of drugs into the U.S. 3 to 5 billion in his own files, and he testified that Hillary and Bill Clinton were involved with bringing in drugs to Arkansas, mainly the airport. And the critics have said it's impossible that the governor would be unaware of this activity. Many have said that they knew that crack cocaine was involved, talking about Hillary and Bill Clinton. And this is the same demon that just a little less than 4 years ago that many of us was running around with a chicken with their head cut off, ready to vote this demon to be our next president of the United States, talking about Hillary Clinton. Y'all remember that? In 2016, when she was running next to this other demon, Donald Trump, everyone was going crazy, voting for her, mainly the black community. She's going to all these black churches and black community centers, black this, black that, trying to get our vote. The government files says that her and her husband were well aware and involved with crack cocaine coming into Mena Airport in Arkansas when Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas. Many critics and through CIA and government testimony. They said there's no way they didn't know. But I could also talk about how the charges were dropped because it was a government investigation about this. But they dropped the charges like they always do. Doubt that they do anything to Trump. I doubt it. They always let them off or give them little slaps on the wrist when it comes to us. But we want a divorce. Loving you hasn't been good for me or good for us. What more do you need? This crack cocaine. And that's why the Quran tells us that Satan always finds a way to add in his vanity, making things impure. Satan always adds in his vanity to make things impure. Cocaine used to be a good thing. I talked about it earlier. Comes from the cocoa leaf. And the people of Peru used to bite on the cocoa leaf because cocaine gives you energy. But it wasn't addictive to climb the steep mountains. But then once it came here, and they took out the alkaloids and added the crack to it, and studied the science of it on rats. I could talk about that, and especially how to make it especially addictive to us. Then it became addictive. It hits the pleasure sensor of the brain called dopamine. We all have this chemical in our brain called dopamine. It's the pleasure sensor of the brain. And once you hit that crack cocaine for the first time, you get a euphoric high that you never had before. They say it's better than sex. A euphoric high. I always, when I was a young buck, wanted to know what that euphoric high was, meaning the euphoric high of sex, and some of us call it an orgasm. I wanted to know that. But this euphoric high from crack, I've never tried it, and God damn it, I never will. I don't want to know. But it must be a powerful thing. It's gotta be. It's gotta be. It's gotta be. Dopamine, the pleasure sensor in the brain, sends messages to the rest of your body. When you taste ice cream for the first time, whether it's chocolate or vanilla, that pleasure sensor in your brain sends you a message and it says, I like that. When you see a fine woman walk by, mainly our sisters, oh boy, y'all fine. You see all them curves, but mainly, I hope, her brain power, and you say, the pleasure sensor in the brain, now we're talking about the sight pleasure sensor, says, I like that. The other pleasure sensor was the taste with the ice cream. You touch something. Man, I like that. It taps into all the five senses, meaning the pleasure sensor of the brain. So when someone tries that crack cocaine for the first time, immediately it goes to the pleasure sensor of the brain called dopamine. And it gives you a euphoric high. But here's the problem. That high only lasts for about 45 minutes. That's why the crack man, the dope man, can stand on a corner and he may see the same person twice in an hour, if not more. Because they get that euphoric high, but the high only lasts them about 45 minutes. Then they have a crash. And now they're chasing that high that they'll never get. That first high that they get from hitting that crack, they'll never get it again. But now they're hardwired. Now they're addicted to the crack. And like Pookie said in New Jack City, now I gotta have it. I gotta have it. Because they won't get that high again. And that's how they become a crack addict. They're no longer a crack user. Now they're a crack addict. Because that crack is tapped into the pleasure sensor of the brain called dopamine. Now they gotta have it. Now the dope man can just stand there and see the same people come back and forth, chasing that first high. They know this. They know this. Have destroyed many. All our families have been bitten by this bug. It don't discriminate, but it's something in that really damages the black man and woman. They have done something in the laboratory. Because look who is being most affected by it. As if white people don't do drugs. They're the biggest drug users. And the statistics show it. But we are the ones who are most heavily punished and treated when we're caught with it. Your good old friend Bill Clinton came out with the 1994 crack versus powder bill or law, which imprisoned more black men than any other president. Did you hear what your brother said? Look it up. The crack versus powder law. So if you caught with powder, the punishment wasn't as much. But if you caught with crack, man, they threw you under the jail. And that was introduced by good old Bill Clinton, when he was president in 94. And he's called the black president. We need a divorce. Loving you hasn't been good for me. Someone hashtag that for me. Played a song by Vivian Green, just a little different mindset. She was talking about some Negro. But you know where I'm going. Loving you hasn't been good for me. We need a divorce. If you got a family member or a friend that is struggling with drugs, please try to get them some help. I have a little training there. But we need to start our own groups, our own support system to keep our people off of that mess as much as possible. Thank you, brother, my good brother, Ray Brown. Thank you. Loving you isn't good for me. Thank you, brother Rashim. We need a divorce immediately. If we just divorce some of their evil ways and practices, we'd be on our way to freedom. But sadness and depression is a gateway to abusing drugs and alcohol. Now you're hearing from someone who has training with drugs and alcohol. What I do now is therapy with children, but some of my master's program in school is drugs and alcohol. It's just a filler for something that is empty in us. Again, I saw a potential star go down behind this, meaning my sister Veronica. I talked about her earlier. She met with Cicely Tyson, stayed with her, met with Isabella Sanford because she was into acting. She won, when they had it, Miss Fine Brown Awards right here in York, PA. My sister is a good bit older than me. You might be like, I didn't hear about that. Yeah, that's because that was back in the 70s. Ask someone back in the 70s about Veronica Howard. She won them at CA. And I'm not bragging on her, but in the way I am. I don't mind bragging. I just don't uplift myself. And then she got into acting. And she went and stayed with Cicely Tyson and Isabella Sanford, who played Weezy on the Jeffersons. But she got hooked up with a Negro who introduced her to the crack and the cocaine. And she never could kick that habit. And at 36, I lost my sister to the same drug that we're talking about now. Just 2 years ago, I lost my brother. lost my nephew, and many others and aunts and uncles, and we've seen the destruction that is done. Are y'all all right? Am I making sense? We're remembering the 29-year anniversary of the movie Boyz in the Hood. Did you know that fentanyl is the #1 killer of black people in the city of Philadelphia right now, more than gun violence? Did you hear what I said? Fentanyl, the opioid, a powerful opioid, strong enough if you put some on the tip of your finger, it could take you out of here. Fentanyl is the #1 killer of black people in the city of Philadelphia, more than gun violence. More than gun violence. In 2016, the New York Times reported that drug overdose is the #1 killer of all Americans under the age of 50. And that was a 22% increase from the year before. So now that is affecting all Americans. Now it's a panic. Hell, when I lived in North Carolina, we had to go to a statewide training at North Carolina State University, the Wolfpack. We had to go to a statewide training on how to get more training on how to deal with opioid overdose, drug overdose, because now it's affecting white people. Now it's affecting white people. So now it's a panic. Now it's interventions. Now it's rehabs. But when the crack cocaine was ravaging us, by our friend Gary Webb, what he exposed, it's heavy drug sentences. No interventions, no rehabs, jail, taking children from their mother, from their father. But what are we going to do? The first thing, like I posed and like my good brother Rashim and brother Ray posted, and I asked you to hashtag the same thing. Loving you hasn't been good for me, and we want a divorce. We want a total divorce from their ways, from their practices, from their beliefs. If we do that alone is a solution. If we divorce them from their ways, their beliefs, and their practices, that alone is a solution to our pain and suffering. We've tried everything else, and it's not working. They say doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is insanity. We don't want you no more. At least I don't. I've already divorced them. But I need my people. No man is an island. We need the tribe and the family to know what's going on. That is the purpose of this podcast. And why I'm here, to lift the mind, the body, and the soul of our people. That's the purpose of this podcast, to lift the mind, the body, and the soul. But if you're addicted to drugs, that's not going to happen. What's the solution? What's the answer? Well, first, we got to know who our enemy is. This ain't no hate talk. Ain't a hateful bone in this body. It's a lot of things I don't like, but I don't hate anyone. Hate is wasted energy. And I know that's what the saying is. Oh, that Brother Sharif or the Muslims, they hate people. No, we hate Satan. Because God hates Satan in his ways. And we're often taught on how to love God, God's many attributes. He's love. He's a healer. He's a redeemer. He's a giver and taker of life. God bless me today. I woke up another day. We're taught on that, and that's good. We should know who our creator is, who is responsible for the air, the sun, the moon, the stars, giving us life. We should know that. But why are we not taught the science of Satan? Why are we not taught the science of Satan and his ways? Why aren't we taught that? Aren't we supposed to know what and who is harmful to us? Talk to me, family. Talk to me. Talk to me. Am I making sense? We get little smidgets of it, but the science of it, very rarely are we taught of who and what in the ways of Satan. What's so scary about that? If you walked out into a field, your mom, your grandma be like, watch that baby, it's snakes out there. Don't go in that bush, it's poison berries in that bush. It could hurt you. But when it comes to the real Satan, who has made the earth tremble and made nations tremble, like Isaiah 14 quotes, is this Lucifer, the fallen, who has made nations tremble and rised above the moon and the stars. That's what it says in the Old Testament in Isaiah 14. Who else has rose above the moon and the stars? Who else has done that? And how come that verse ain't talked about? We should know the science of Satan. It will make the divorce so much easier, because in a regular marriage, someone just don't divorce for no reason. It is some information that they have come across to make them come to the determination that loving you is no longer good for me. You found a phone number. Someone told you something. You saw something. The interaction just ain't healthy. So our sister Vivian Green said, loving you isn't good for me. You got me on an emotional roller coaster. But this Satan here, who isn't some ghost or some fairy, it's a man in the flesh, has done unspeakable things to us. And we are still married to them. We seem to be having a hard time going to Judge Judy or Judge Joe Brown or Judge Mathis asking for a divorce. They have made it clear that loving them isn't good for us. Tonight, we're talking about the 29-year anniversary of the movie Boyz in the Hood, but more of the science behind the movie. You tell me drugs still ain't coming into the black community, even though this movie came out 29 years ago. You tell me that we ain't suffering from gentrification. We just goddamn saw it a couple years ago with the opening of this Rev Stadium. Many black families had to evacuate that area, and we could go on and on. In Philadelphia, with all them stadiums, ran the people out. In Detroit, gentrification. The city I just moved from, Durham, North Carolina, ran, I believe it's Route 147 right through the heart of Durham, and that used to be Durham's version of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Hundreds of businesses there, ran a freeway right through it that is still there today. I'm talking about in Durham, North Carolina. Tell me Furious Styles, aka Lawrence Fishburne, didn't tell us that 29 years ago. Is it not still going on? Is gangs and 13, 14, 15-year-old boys still being supplied with high-powered weapons? Some of us are victims of it right here in this city. Some of our family members have done the shooting and been victims of the shooting. So what's the difference from Boyz in the Hood 29 years ago to what's going on right now? Loving you hasn't been good for me. We want a divorce. But you got to believe it and know the sciences of Satan. You don't got to, but you got to understand this book written by a white man, Gary Webb, a freelance reporter for the San Jose News newspaper. And he went to black churches, black community centers, and he explained how the CIA and the government systematically brought drugs into black communities. While Ronald Reagan and his wife was having a commercial saying, "Say no to drugs," the government was bringing them in. It's all documented. This isn't rocket science. And then in 2004, Gary Webb, who exposed this with government files and documents, tons of them. I've read this book. He supposedly committed suicide. But the reports say that he had 2 gunshot wounds in the back of his head. How can you shoot yourself twice in the back of the head? Because the first shot is going to totally incapacitate you. That's what the report says. That he had 2 gunshot wounds in the back of his head. He committed suicide. How can you shoot yourself twice in the back of the head? Man, he was exposing too much, mainly with this book, and freely giving the information. You can go on YouTube and look up some of the interviews that he done. Gary Webb, a white man. And he ends up dead of a supposed suicide in 2004. Because he let us know what Satan was doing to us. But you gotta believe it. You gotta understand it. And then we can start filing for divorce. But we need the family. We need as much of the tribe to collectively file for this divorce. Because if some of the family is believing one thing and even getting behind this satanic force, and then some of us is somewhere else, that's another battle that we got to fight. You got to know that loving them hasn't been good for us. It is so evident. What more do you need to see? The churches, the mosque, they need to speak up and step up instead of going along to get along. Did you hear what I said? The churches, the mosques, they need to step up and stop going along to get along. Well, I thought you was a Muslim, Brother Sharif. Oh, I am. I just strive to be an honest one. Now, the scripture says that turn the other cheek. I've talked about this in the last couple of weeks with this unjust war in Iran. Turn the other cheek. Love your enemy. But then you'll see some of these places giving medals of honor to those who participated in an unjust war. So which one is it? Are we supposed to turn the other cheek or aren't we? That's what the scripture says. Turn the other cheek, but then they give out medals of honor to those who fought in an unjust war. No one's bothering us. All the military bases is in other people's land. Ain't no one bothering us. Do you see any military bases from an outside country in this country? I'll wait. Loving you hasn't been good for me. They got us all over the place. Like Vivian Green said, an emotional roller coaster. We have conflicting feelings and conflicting thoughts, and we don't even know it sometimes. It's called, in the counseling world, cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance. Your cognitive thoughts and belief are distant from what you're actually practicing and doing. Cognitive dissonance. We need a divorce. We got the Harambe reading program on Thursday, the 23rd at 6 p.m. at Jabaz Ministries Church. It's not a religious program. It's a cultural program. And we're inviting especially brothers or any other volunteers to come to help our children with reading, writing, and comprehension skills. I'm asking the brothers to just dedicate some of your time to the future of our children and our village. This could be the start. Well, this February will be a 1-year anniversary, but we're trying to take it to another level. We're trying to take it to another level. But we're asking to invest some time in our youth to help them with reading and writing. If we can watch Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, who's doing great things, LeBron James is. If we can dedicate hours to them and get very little in return, we should be able to dedicate time to our youth, who some are on the brink of destruction. They don't got a father in their life, may not have a mother. Do you know how many grandparents are raising their grandchildren these days? Another untold fact that is affecting our community tremendously. The amount of grandparents that are raising children, their children's children. Their days of chasing behind little snotty-nosed children should be over with. They can't keep up with them. They become unruly. And you know the rest. I ain't telling you what I think or what someone told me. It's part of my job, because with me being a mobile therapist, I work with the children that have mental and emotional problems in the school, but I actually can go to the home too. Just picked up a client. Grandmom taking 4 children. But with a program like this, and if these children see brothers working together and sisters working together, we could possibly save someone's life or keep them from being a drug dealer or a drug user. Because neither one of them is going to turn out good. We see it all the time. We already talked about the violence last year, which was mostly behind what? Drugs. People doing the first part of Rick Ross' life. We got to do something, and this is what I'm offering. If you got a youth who seems to be out of control and needs some guidance, give them my number. Send them my way. I can't save the world. I can't save the city. But if I can help with 1 or 2, I can rest better at night. Did you hear what your brother said? And I'm signing off. If you know a youth or a young person or someone in our peer group that is struggling with life, in particularly drugs, their behavior, whatever, this is what I'm offering. Send them to me, and I'll see what I can do. And even if I can't directly help them, I have resources that can do what I may not be able to do. But I will at least try to get you on the right track, or get them on the right track. We got to work together. This is the beginning solutions to not go down this track with the drug epidemic. Our children don't wake up one morning and say, I want to be a drug dealer. I want to kill or